Hi, my name is Charlene Erickson, and my senior presentation is Why Wildlife Education is So Important. Human and Wildlife Conflict. By only receiving education about wildlife animals through wildlife cartoon shows, nature shows, and cartoon pictures, we lack the knowledge on how dangerous wildlife animals really are. Why is wildlife education so important? Conflicts between humans and wildlife have occurred since the dawn of humanity. With the growth of human population around the world, wildlife and human conflicts are on the rise. Due to our lack of wildlife education, we believe wildlife animals are friendly, which puts us in grave danger. As the human population increases, we are moving into wildlife habitat, which is creating conflicts between us and the wildlife animals. The wildlife education can provide us with key factors to coexist through biodiversity with wildlife animals, which is now more important than ever for our own safety and the protection of wildlife species and their habitats. So what is human and wildlife conflict? It refers to the interaction between people and wildlife and result negative impact on the resources or the wildlife animal or their habitat. The main reasons wildlife animals attack people are due to their unfamiliar behaviors when they are around that wildlife animal that cause them to get attacked. These behaviors include taking selfies in front of the animal, feeding them, and being near a wildlife animal and their young. Wildlife education provides us with a key to understanding that wildlife animals are truly dangerous. In 2015, a woman and her daughter were taking a selfie in front of a bison in Yellowstone National Park. As the women turned their backs on the bison animal gored the woman and flipped her into the air. She was lucky to only sustain minor injuries, but next time it might get worse. Urban wildlife nuisance. As the population grows, we are approaching into wildlife habitat by building our houses in our industry. This is creating many issues for wildlife animal and our own safety. Urban wildlife education is the key to coexisting with wildlife in their habitat. We are disturbing the life essentials that wildlife animals need to survive. The wildlife animals are becoming habitual to the food sources we leave out, such as pet food, bird seed, and trash cans that aren't secured tightly. These food sources can attract bears, skunks, deer, elk, javelina, and many more wildlife animals that may become a nuisance. When a wildlife animal becomes habitual to that food, they become sick because they don't get the natural foods that they need for their nutritional sources. They become very dangerous, and they may possibly be euthanized. In 2012, a woman was attacked by a black bear while walking her dog in a urban area in Pine Top, Arizona. And in May of 2016, a black bear was found wandering around a Flagstaff city neighborhood all day long. The Arizona Game and Fish Department officers had to euthanize both the nuisance black bears. The Arizona Game and Fish Department tries to relocate black bears instead of euthanizing, but there is a great possibility that bear will return to that same exact area and become a threat to humans. It all stems back from an incident that happened in 1996 near Tucson, Arizona at a campground, where the Arizona Game and Fish officers relocated the bear, and it returned to the same campground and brutally mauled a teenage girl. Bears are like bloodhounds. They have a very keen sense of smell and detect food sources and then remember them. They then will continue approaching on that neighborhood or that campground for the food sources. They will then become sick and become very dangerous and most likely have to be euthanized. Urban wildlife habitat biodiversity. As human population grows, we are approaching in wildlife habitat, which brings conflicts to both us and the wildlife animal. Wildlife diversity education is key to coexisting with wildlife, for our own safety and for theirs. Wildlife habitat defines the area in which the species lives that provides their food, water, and shelter. Urban wildlife diversity defines both human and wildlife species sharing the same resources needed to survive. Wildlife habitat destruction. Habitat destruction affects animals because when their home gets destroyed, so does everything else that they need to survive. After living a while without the right resources, they shall die. It's just as if we did not eat for a month, or we did not have water for 3 weeks. We would die too. Wildlife habitat destruction is the process by which natural habitat is damaged or destroyed to such an extent that it no longer is capable of supporting the species and ecological communities that naturally occur there. It often results in an extinction of a species and, as a result, the loss of biodiversity between humans and wildlife animals. Due to our lack of knowledge as humans, we have been destroying wildlife habitat since the dawn of human existence. By diverting waterways and building dams, by building bridges and roadways, degrading soils by overuse of agriculture, and cutting down unnecessary trees, which all destroy the migration patterns and areas and the natural habitats that wildlife need to survive. We as humans pollute our water systems and soil systems with untreated water and by applying fertilizers and pesticides, and by untreating sewage. These impacts create runoff that may degrade and pollute wildlife natural habitats. There are many educational programs ready available on websites. The Arizona Game and Fish Department has a wonderful program called Focus on Wildlife. The program was developed for teachers around the state of Arizona to obtain free software and material for their classroom coursework. The program promotes awareness, appreciation, and stewardship for our state's wildlife resources by using wildlife as context in social studies, math, and language arts. The programs include lessons, posters, and books. The programs teach children at an early age the true facts of wildlife, to understand their true characteristics, behaviors, and psychological facts. The program teaches the awareness to the children about safety and how to protect themselves and better coexist with wildlife in urban areas. The Arizona Game and Fish Department also has a website called Living with Wildlife. It was developed to learn how to better coexist with wildlife in urban areas. The program includes how to live with mountain lions, bears, coyotes, rattlesnakes, bats, deer, elk, and many more wildlife animals that we have in the state of Arizona. The website includes wildlife facts, brochures, videos, laws, what to do in case you encounter a wildlife animal, how to prevent them from becoming a nuisance in your community, and provides the health issues that can occur when a wildlife animal is living in your neighborhood. Bear awareness programs can be found throughout the United States, Canada, and other countries to teach people about the dangers and how to protect themselves when living in urban areas where there's bears present. Examples would be the Sierra National Forest has developed a program called Bear Smart. That can be found on their website. The USD Forest Service has developed a program called Be Bear Aware that can also be found on their website. There's many websites out there available to obtain information on wildlife animals and how to live in urban areas. The National Wildlife Federation Backyard Habitat Program was established in 1973 and is dedicated to promoting the creation and restoration of landscapes in human surroundings. The backyard habitats provide wildlife, insects, and plants with the necessary food and water and shelter to sustain life. The program instructs what native plants that better adapt to local soils to establish a deeper root system to prevent runoff and pollution. An example of that is the city of Bloomingdale, Indiana, has established a website in their neighbor communities to learn the aspects of the Backyard Habitat Program. It's a great website. I would advise anybody to check it out. They have lots of information. It's amazing. And we plant stuff in our neighborhoods that makes the animals sick. And we plant stuff that the animals do eat. So future concerns and issues with the growth of human population on the rise, we will face future issues with wildlife living in our backyards. It is very imperative to become more aware of the dangers that can exist when approaching wildlife. It is very important to understand the dangers that we create to both us and the wildlife animal. By implementing wildlife education programs in our communities, our schools, our city, state, and park systems, we can learn better how to coexist with wildlife for our safety and for the wildlife animals and their habitat. Wildlife education is the key to better understand and sustain our future, to coexist through biodiversity with wildlife animals in our fast-growing world. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you want any information on how to live with wildlife habitats, and any other questions you have. Thank you.